We only want important people at our celebration. I was standing in the doorway of the Oak Valley Country Club's private dining room, still wearing my work clothes from the construction site. Calloused hands, dusty boots, the smell of honest work clinging to my Carhartt jacket. My daughter Emma's rehearsal dinner was in full swing. Crystal glasses, designer dresses, the kind of people who measure worth by zip codes and job titles. Bradley spotted me and his face went pale. He whispered something to Emma, then walked over with that particular smile rich people use when they're about to crush you politely. "Thomas," he said, not quite meeting my eyes, "we only want important people at our celebration." "I'm sure you understand." I looked at him for a long moment. 25 years of sacrifice. 25 years of building something he couldn't even imagine. Then I smiled and said one word. "Interesting. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. 25 years ago, I made a decision that would change everything. I was 27, fresh out of college with a business degree, and I'd just inherited $43,000 from my grandfather. Not a fortune, but enough to start something. I could have bought suits and played the corporate game. Instead, I bought work boots and a pickup truck. See, I'd watched too many rich kids grow up thinking money fell from the sky. I wanted my daughter to understand the weight of a dollar, the dignity of honest work, the difference between earning respect and demanding it. So I started Wilson Construction with one truck and a dream. But here's the thing nobody knew. I didn't just swing hammers. I swung deals, big ones, while wearing the same faded Carhartt jacket every day. The first year, I made $62,000. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment and saved every penny I could. Emma was 2 years old, and her mother had died in childbirth. It was just us against the world. Year 2, 98,000. Year 3, 135,000. I kept wearing the work clothes, kept driving the old truck, kept letting people assume I was just another guy who worked with his hands. By year 5, I owned 3 construction crews and had contracts worth over $500,000 annually. Emma was 7, asking why we couldn't live in the big houses I was building for other people. "Someday, sweetheart," I told her, "when you understand why we don't need to." The business grew. Wilson Construction became Wilson Development, then Wilson Holdings. By Emma's 16th birthday, I owned 11 companies across 3 states and had a net worth that would make Bradley's family look like they shopped at garage sales. But Emma never knew. She saw her dad leave every morning in work boots and come home with sawdust in his hair. She saw me pay for her private school education with crumpled bills from my pocket. She assumed I was scraping by, making sacrifices, which in a way I was. The sacrifice was letting her believe her father was ordinary. Fast forward to last month. Emma, now 24 with a degree I'd quietly funded through my construction worker savings, brought home Bradley Morrison, 28 years old, assistant marketing director at Patterson & Associates, driving a leased BMW and wearing his arrogance like a designer suit. Their first dinner at my modest 2-bedroom house, the same house I'd lived in for 20 years, was painful to watch. Bradley kept glancing around like he was trapped in a museum of poor life choices. "So, Mr. Wilson," he said, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "Emma tells me you work in construction?" "I do. That must be challenging. Physically, I mean." I held up my hands, calloused, scarred, real. "Builds character." He smiled the way people smile at zoo animals. "I'm sure it does." Over the next few months, I watched Bradley systematically try to separate Emma from her embarrassing background, suggesting she didn't need to mention her father's job to his colleagues, offering to pay for things so she wouldn't have to ask her struggling dad for money. The wedding planning was where it got interesting. Bradley insisted on Oak Valley Country Club. $45,000 for the venue alone. I quietly transferred the money to Emma's account, letting her think it was my entire life savings. The dress was $8,500. The flowers were $12,000. The photographer was another $12,000. Every time Emma worried about the cost, I told her the same thing. "Don't worry about money, sweetheart. Your happiness is worth everything I've got." She cried when she heard that, hugged me tight, and said she was sorry her father couldn't give her the wedding she deserved, if only she knew. But the final straw came 3 days ago at the venue walkthrough. Bradley was showing his parents around, and they were discussing the guest list. We need to be careful about optics, Bradley's mother said, her voice sharp with practiced superiority. This is a networking opportunity as much as a celebration. Absolutely, Bradley agreed. We've got the Patterson partners coming, the Morrison family friends, some of my connections from the country club. Important people. Then they noticed me, standing quietly in the corner in my work clothes. Bradley's father looked me up and down like I was tracking mud on his Persian rug. Who's that? That's Emma's father, Bradley said, his voice dropping to a whisper that wasn't quite quiet enough. He works construction. With his hands. The disgust in his voice could have stripped paint. That night, Emma came to me with tears in her eyes. Dad, he thinks maybe you could skip the ceremony. Just come to the reception. He's worried his colleagues might think. She couldn't finish the sentence. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt something colder, more calculating. What do you think I should do? I don't know. She was crying now. I love you, Dad, but I love him too, and he says this wedding could really help his career, and... I hugged her tight and made my decision. Don't worry, Emma. Everything's going to work out exactly the way it should. She had no idea how right she was. 2:15 a.m. My phone rang, jerking me awake. The caller ID showed Bradley's number, and I almost declined. Then I remembered something my grandfather taught me. Never miss a chance to let your enemies reveal themselves. I hit record on my phone app and answered. Hello, Bradley. Thomas. His voice was slurred, cocktails and liquid courage. We need to talk. I'm listening. Look, I like you, okay? You're a good guy, salt of the earth and all that. But Emma and I are building something here, something important. And honestly, you're going to hold her back. I sat up in bed, fully awake now. How's that? Come on, man, be realistic. I work at Patterson and Associates. Do you know what that means? We handle clients worth hundreds of millions. The Vanderbilt account alone is worth more than you'll make in your entire lifetime. He paused, and I could hear him taking another drink. Emma's a smart girl. Beautiful. She could fit into that world if she plays her cards right. But having a father who shows up to social events in work boots, it's not going to work. I see. I mean, what would I tell my colleagues? Hey, meet my father-in-law. He does manual labor. These people drive cars that cost more than your annual salary. They summer in the Hamptons. They don't want to make small talk with someone who smells like sawdust. The recording app showed 4 minutes and counting. So, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we keep things simple. You love Emma, right? Then let her have the life she deserves. Stay in the background. Let me handle the social stuff. Maybe we set you up with a nice little job somewhere. Something clean, supervisory. You could wear a button-down shirt, you know? I closed my eyes and counted to 5. Tell me more about this life Emma deserves. Partnership track at Patterson. Country club membership. The right neighborhood, the right friends. Emma's got potential, Thomas. Real potential. But she needs to distance herself from where she came from. Where she came from? Look, I'm not trying to be cruel here. You did your best with what you had. But Emma's moving up in the world now. She doesn't need to be dragged down by this blue-collar stuff. He was really warming up now. I mean, you didn't even go to college, right? Emma told me. High school, then straight to construction. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not exactly the background you want when you're trying to impress clients who went to Harvard and Yale. Anything else? Just try to understand. This isn't personal. It's business. Emma's future is business. And having a father who works with his hands, who drives that beat-up truck, who lives in that tiny house, it's not the image we need to project. 7 minutes of recorded gold. Bradley, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you know what I do for work? I mean, specifically? He laughed, the sound ugly and condescending. Emma said you work construction. Building stuff, right? Houses and things? Houses and things, that's accurate. Look, Thomas, I respect the work, really. Someone has to do the manual labor. But let's not pretend it's the same as what I do. I manage accounts worth more money than you've probably seen in your life. How much money do you think I've seen in my life? I don't know. 50,000 a year? Maybe 60 if you work a lot of overtime? I smiled in the darkness. Bradley, I want you to remember this conversation tomorrow. Every word of it. What's that supposed to mean? It means your education's about to begin. Good night. I hung up and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. First call, Sarah Thompson, my business manager. She'd been with me for 8 years, handling everything from payroll to property acquisitions. Sarah was the only person outside my accountant who knew the full scope of what I'd built. Sarah, it's Tom Thomas. I know it's early, but I need you at the office by 7 a.m. We're going to war. Second call, my banker at First National. Richard Hayes had been handling my account since the beginning, watching my single checking account grow into a complex web of business holdings and investment portfolios. Richard, it's Tom Wilson. I need you to prepare a complete financial summary. Everything, all accounts, all properties, all business holdings, I need it by noon today. Third call, Marcus Webb, my lawyer. If you're going to destroy someone's world, you better make sure you're bulletproof while you do it. Marcus, I need a complete legal review of the Patterson & Associates Employee Handbook, specifically their ethics clauses and conflict of interest policies. I also need you to research their client list and recent business dealings. Fourth call, Emma's college registrar. It took some convincing to get them to pull records at 3 in the morning, but when you've donated $200,000 to their scholarship fund over the years, they tend to be accommodating. By 6 a.m., I had everything I needed. Bradley Morrison was about to learn the difference between having money and having power. And more importantly, he was about to learn that some lessons cost exactly $100,000. 8 a.m. sharp. Sarah walked into my office carrying 3 thick folders and wearing the kind of smile that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. The Patterson & Associates information you requested, she said, dropping the first folder on my desk. Very interesting reading. How interesting? Interesting enough that Bradley Morrison is about to become unemployed. I opened the folder. Financial statements, client lists, recent contracts, and there on page 14, something beautiful. Patterson & Associates, recent construction projects section. Look familiar? I ran my finger down the list. Morrison Plaza, renovation. Wilson Development. Patterson Family Estate, expansion. Wilson Construction. 3 office buildings downtown. Wilson Holdings subsidiaries. Bradley's company had paid my companies over $2.3 million in the last 18 months. He literally worked for me and didn't even know it. Sarah, I want you to call every wedding vendor. Tell them there's been a change of plans. All of them? Every single one. The florist was first. Enchanted Gardens, owned by Patricia Wells. She'd been using Wilson Construction for her greenhouse expansions for 5 years. Patricia, it's Tom Wilson, about the Morrison wedding tomorrow. Oh, Tom, I was hoping you'd call. The arrangements are absolutely stunning. Emma's going to love the orchid cascades. Patricia, there's been a complication. I need to cancel the floral contract. Silence. Cancel? Tom, the wedding is tomorrow. The flowers are already arranged. The delivery truck is loaded. I understand. Send me the full invoice for labor and materials. I'll pay every penny. But why? Let's just say the groom has some concerns about the importance of certain guests. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. She'd met Bradley during the planning sessions. She'd seen the way he treated her staff. You know what, Tom? I was never comfortable with that boy anyway. Invoice sent. And Tom, the flowers will find a good home at the Children's Hospital. On the house. Next, Masterpiece Catering, owned by James Rodriguez. Wilson Construction had built his commissary kitchen. James, Tom Wilson, we need to talk about the Morrison wedding. The reception's set for tomorrow, Tom. Everything's prepped. Change of plans. Cancel the contract. Cancel? Tom, we've got food for 200 people. The staff is scheduled. The setup crew is ready to roll. Bill me for everything, full cost. I don't understand. You will. And James, donate the food to the homeless shelter on 5th Street. Send me that bill too. The photographer came next. David Chen at Eternal Moments Photography. His studio lease, Wilson Holdings property. David, it's Tom Wilson. The Morrison wedding is off. Off? Tom, I've cleared my entire weekend. My equipment is packed. My assistant is ready. Full payment for your services, but no pictures. This is insane. What happened? Bradley Morrison happened. Send your invoice. One by one, they fell like dominoes. The cake designer, Victoria's Sweet Dreams. Her bakery loan? First National Bank, where I sat on the advisory board. The musicians, Harmony Strings Quartet. Their practice space? Wilson Properties. The limousine service, Premier Transportation. Their fleet financing? Through a bank where I was a major investor. By 10 a.m., I'd made 8 phone calls and spent $63,000 in cancellation fees. The wedding was already dead. Bradley just didn't know it yet. But the real beauty was still coming. Sarah, get me Patterson and Associates on the phone. I want to speak with senior partner William Patterson. Tom Wilson calling for Mr. Patterson, please. Mr. Wilson, Bill Patterson here. How can I help you today? Bill, I think we need to discuss one of your employees, Bradley Morrison. Morrison? He's one of our assistant directors. Smart kid. Handles some of our construction liaison work. I'm aware. In fact, he's been handling quite a bit of business with my companies. Your companies? Wilson Development, Wilson Construction, Wilson Holdings. We've paid Patterson and Associates just over $2.3 million this year alone. Dead silence. Bill? You still there? Mr. Wilson, I had no idea you were... That is, I didn't realize that your assistant director has been insulting your biggest construction client? Calling me an embarrassing blue-collar nobody who smells like sawdust? He said what? It's all recorded, Bill. Every word. I can email you the file if you'd like. Mr. Wilson, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable. Bradley Morrison will be dealt with immediately. Actually, Bill, let's hold off on that. I have a better idea. Whatever you need. I need you to trust me for about 6 more hours. Can you do that? Of course. Anything. Perfect. Oh, and Bill, you might want to clear your Saturday schedule. I have a feeling you're going to want to see how this plays out. The trap was set. The bait was perfect. Now all I had to do was wait for Bradley to walk into it. 11 a.m. My phone rang. Emma, crying. Dad, something terrible is happening. The vendors are calling Bradley, saying they're canceling everything. The flowers, the food, the photographer, everything. That's strange, honey. Did they say why? They keep saying there was a change in circumstances and that Mr. Wilson requested cancellation. Dad, please tell me you didn't... Emma, I need you to come to my office. Right now. Your office? Dad, you work construction sites. 1247 Industrial Boulevard. The big glass building. Ask for Thomas Wilson. Top floor. I don't understand. You will. Bring Bradley. 1 hour later, Emma walked into the lobby of Wilson Holdings headquarters. The building I'd owned for 7 years, the one I'd designed myself, the one that housed the nerve center of a $15 million business empire. The receptionist smiled warmly. Miss Wilson, your father's expecting you. Top floor, executive elevator. I watched through the security cameras as Emma's face went white. Bradley was with her, looking confused and increasingly uncomfortable. The elevator doors opened directly into my office. Not a cubicle, not a trailer. A corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking half the city, furnished with furniture that cost more than most people's cars. Emma stood frozen in the doorway. Hello, sweetheart. Dad, what is this place? This is where I work. Every day for the last 7 years, Bradley was staring at the walls, framed building permits, architectural awards, a photo of me shaking hands with the governor at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, business licenses for 12 different companies. I don't understand, Emma whispered. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder 6 inches thick. 25 years ago, I started Wilson Construction with $43,000 and a dream. Today, Wilson Holdings owns 11 construction companies, 47 commercial properties, and has a gross annual revenue of $15.8 million. I slid the folder across the desk. Bank statements, property deeds, business licenses, tax returns, it's all there. Emma's hands were shaking as she opened the folder. The first page was a bank statement from First National. Current balance, $2.4 million. This can't be real. Page 12, your college tuition payments, $180,000 over 4 years. Page 18, your car insurance, health insurance, credit card bills, all paid through Wilson Holdings accounts. Bradley finally found his voice. This is impossible. You drive a beat-up truck. You live in a tiny house. You dress like a construction worker. Because that's what I am, Bradley. I just happen to own the construction companies. I stood up and walked to the window. Emma, do you see that building across the street? The Morrison Plaza? I built that. The Patterson family estate on the north side. I built that too. In fact, I've built most of the commercial real estate in this city over the last 2 decades. She was crying now, but I wasn't done. The scholarship fund at your university? The anonymous donor who's given $200,000 over the last 10 years? That's me. The new children's wing at General Hospital? Wilson Holdings donated the construction materials and labor. The homeless shelter on 5th Street gets a check from my foundation every month. I opened another drawer and pulled out a different folder. Bradley, this might interest you. A complete financial analysis of Patterson and Associates. His face went pale. Your company has paid my companies over $2.3 million this year alone. The Morrison Plaza renovation your firm managed? My crews built it. Your family's estate expansion? Wilson Construction handled the entire project. I slid a contract across the desk. Page 4, the signature line. See that? Thomas Wilson, Wilson Development. I've been signing your paychecks and you never knew it. Bradley's mouth opened and closed like a fish. But wait, there's more. Sarah, could you come in here, please? My assistant entered carrying another folder. Sarah Thompson, my business manager. Sarah, could you read Bradley the employment section from the Patterson and Associates handbook? Of course. Section 12, subsection 4. All employees are expected to maintain professional relationships with clients and vendors. Any behavior that damages the reputation of the firm or creates conflict with business partners may result in immediate termination. I smiled at Bradley. Sarah also has a complete transcript of our phone conversation from 2:15 this morning. Every word. Would you like me to play it for Emma? No. Bradley's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I said no. Good choice. But I think Mr. Patterson deserves to hear it, don't you? After all, you did call his biggest construction client an embarrassing blue-collar nobody who smells like sawdust. Emma looked at Bradley like she was seeing him for the first time. You said what? Emma, I can explain. Oh, please do, I said. Explain to my daughter how I'm too embarrassing to attend her wedding. Explain how I'm holding her back. Explain how she needs to distance herself from her blue-collar background. Bradley was sweating now. Mr. Wilson, I was drunk. I didn't mean... You meant every word. And you know what? I'm grateful. Because you've just taught Emma something invaluable about the difference between class and money. I sat back down at my desk. So here's what's going to happen. The wedding is canceled. Every vendor has been paid in full and released from their contracts. The venue is available for other events. Dad, please. Emma, I've spent 25 years building something real. Something that matters. I've employed over 300 people, housed dozens of families, and given back to this community in ways that matter. I've done it all while staying humble, staying grounded, staying true to the values I wanted to teach you. I looked directly at Bradley, but I will not be disrespected by someone who measures worth by appearance. I will not watch my daughter marry someone who's ashamed of where she came from. This is insane, Bradley said. You can't just destroy a wedding because your feelings got hurt. Watch me. Emma hadn't spoken for 10 minutes. She sat in my office chair, staring at the bank statements spread across my desk like she was looking at evidence of alien life. Dad. Yes, sweetheart. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? The question I'd been dreading for 25 years. Because I wanted you to grow up normal. I wanted you to understand that people's worth isn't measured by their bank accounts. I wanted you to know the value of hard work, of treating people with respect regardless of their job titles. But I've been worried about money my entire life. I thought we were struggling. I thought you were sacrificing everything for me. I was sacrificing something, just not what you thought. Bradley was pacing by the window, his hands shaking. This changes nothing. You're still not the kind of person my colleagues expect to meet. You still dress like a construction worker. Emma turned on him with a fury I'd never seen before. Shut up. Just shut up. Emma, be reasonable. Your father may have money, but he doesn't have class. He doesn't know how to act in social situations. He's never been to the country club, never been to a proper dinner party. I opened my desk drawer again and pulled out a leather portfolio. Bradley, you mentioned the country club. Which one do you mean? Oak Valley, obviously, the premier club in the city. I slid a document across the desk. My membership card. I've been a member for 12 years. His face went white. The Vanderbilt account you mentioned? Eleanor Vanderbilt and I serve on the hospital board together. Her husband James and I play golf every Thursday. Another document. The Governor's Business Council. I've been a member for 6 years. Another. The Rotary Club Scholarship Committee. I'm the chairman. This is impossible. What's impossible, Bradley, is your complete inability to see past your own prejudices. You spent months insulting me without ever once asking what I actually do for work. You assumed that because I dress practically and drive a practical car, I must be poor and worthless. Emma was crying again, but this time it was different. Anger instead of confusion. Bradley, did you really think my father was embarrassing? Emma, you have to understand. Image matters in my business. Your business? You mean the business that pays my father's companies millions of dollars every year? That's different. How is it different? Bradley straightened his tie, trying to regain some composure. Look, I'm willing to overlook this little deception. We can still make this work. Maybe your father could dress better for social events. Learn some etiquette. I laughed. Actually laughed. Bradley, let me explain something to you. In about 4 hours, you're going to walk into Oak Valley Country Club expecting to get married. Instead, you're going to find 200 confused guests. No flowers, no food, no photographer, and no bride. Emma, you can't be serious about this. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she pulled off her engagement ring and set it on my desk. The man I fell in love with wouldn't have been ashamed of my father. The man I fell in love with would have seen past the work clothes to the man underneath. Emma, please. Think about what you're giving up. Our future together, the life we planned. The life you planned. The life where I pretend to be ashamed of the man who built everything I am. She stood up and walked to the window. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you proud of what you built? Every day. Then why hide it? Because pride isn't about showing off, Emma. It's about knowing your worth doesn't depend on other people's opinions. She turned back to Bradley. Get out. Emma, get out. By 6 p.m., Bradley had regrouped. Social media was his battleground of choice, and he came out swinging. The first post appeared on Facebook at 6:17 p.m. Sometimes you discover that people aren't who they pretend to be. Wedding canceled due to family drama. Some people can't handle their children moving up in the world. Disappointed but not surprised. #toxic family, #moving on. Within an hour, he had 43 likes and a dozen supportive comments from his Patterson and Associates colleagues. So sorry, Bradley. You deserve better. Emma's loss. You'll find someone who appreciates you. Family drama is the worst. Stay strong. At 7:23 p.m., he posted again. Just learned that money can't buy class. Some people think they can manipulate situations with financial threats. Real character shows when you're tested. #, integrity. #, staying true. More likes. More support. Bradley was crafting a narrative where he was the victim of a controlling father and his manipulated daughter. Sarah called me at 8 p.m. Tom, you need to see Bradley's social media. He's spinning this like you're some kind of financial bully who destroyed the wedding out of spite. Let him spin. The posts are getting shared. His friends are buying the story. Sarah, do you remember the Community Appreciation Dinner last month? The one where I received the Citizen of the Year award? Of course. You almost didn't go because you hate being the center of attention. Did anyone take photos? Everyone took photos. It was a big deal when the mayor announced your 20-year contribution to the homeless shelter program. I need you to make some phone calls. At 8:45 p.m., Patricia Wells from Enchanted Gardens posted a response. Actually, Bradley, I've known Tom Wilson for 8 years. He's one of the most generous, humble men I've ever met. The reason your wedding was canceled had nothing to do with money and everything to do with respect. Some people earn it, others demand it. There's a difference. At 9:02 p.m., James Rodriguez from Masterpiece Catering. Bradley Morrison, I've catered events for Tom Wilson's companies for years. Never once has he treated my staff with anything but kindness and respect. If he canceled your wedding, you did something to deserve it. At 9:18 p.m., Dr. Margaret Foster from General Hospital. Tom Wilson has been quietly supporting our children's cancer ward for over a decade. His foundation has paid for treatment, equipment, and family support services. He's never asked for recognition or publicity. That's real character. The tide was turning, but slowly. At 9:31 p.m., Eleanor Vanderbilt posted something that ended the war. Bradley Morrison, I've served on charity boards with Tom Wilson for years. He's contributed over $3 million to local causes and never wanted his name on a single plaque. Meanwhile, you've been bragging about getting invited to events that Tom helped fund. Perhaps you should consider the possibility that some bridges shouldn't be burned. Eleanor Vanderbilt. The Eleanor Vanderbilt, whose account Bradley had been name-dropping for months. The comments section exploded. Wait, Tom Wilson is that Tom Wilson? The Wilson Holdings guy? OMG, Bradley, you had no idea who you were dealing with, did you? Dude, Wilson Construction built half the city. How did you not know? This is awkward. Bradley's been talking about impressing the Vanderbilts, but they're already friends with Emma's dad. By 10 p.m., Bradley was in full damage control mode. There seems to be some confusion about today's events. I have nothing but respect for Mr. Wilson and his accomplishments. Sometimes wedding stress brings out the worst in everyone. No hard feelings, but the internet doesn't forget, and screenshots are forever. At 10:23 p.m., someone posted the audio file. I'm still not sure who leaked Bradley's 2:15 a.m. phone call, but the 7-minute recording spread like wildfire. His voice, slurred with alcohol and arrogance, calling me an embarrassing blue-collar nobody who smelled like sawdust. The backlash was swift and brutal. This is disgusting. Tom Wilson has done more for this community than Bradley Morrison will do in his entire life. The entitlement is unreal. Judging someone by their work clothes while taking money from their companies. Emma dodged a bullet. This guy would have been controlling and abusive. By 11 p.m., Bradley had deleted all his posts and deactivated his accounts. But the damage was done. Sarah called me at midnight with an update I'd been expecting. Tom, I just heard from Bill Patterson. Bradley Morrison is no longer employed by Patterson and Associates. Effective when? About an hour ago. Apparently several clients called after hearing the audio file. The Vanderbilt account specifically requested that Bradley be removed from any future projects. And Emma? Still in her room at your house. She's been there since she left your office this afternoon. I looked out my window at the city I'd helped build over the last 25 years. Tomorrow was supposed to be my daughter's wedding day. Instead, it was going to be her education day, and mine. Saturday morning, 6 a.m., Emma was in my kitchen, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. I couldn't sleep, she said without looking up. Neither could I. I sat down across from her with my own cup and the folder I'd been preparing all night. Dad, I need to understand something. What's that? 25 years. You've been pretending to be something you're not for 25 years. Why? I opened the folder to the first document. This is your birth certificate. July 15th, 1999. Your mother died 3 hours after you were born. Complications from delivery. Emma's eyes filled with tears. We'd talked about her mother before, but never like this. The next document is her life insurance policy. $50,000. Not enough to raise a child properly, but enough to start a business. I turned the page. This is the bank loan I took out 6 months later. $43,000 to buy equipment and a truck. The loan officer told me I was crazy to start a construction company with a newborn baby. He was probably right. Another page. Your first daycare receipt. September 1999. $200 a week. That was half my income at the time. Emma was reading over my shoulder now, following the paper trail of her childhood. First grade tuition at St. Mary's Academy. $8,000 a year. I worked 16-hour days to afford it. Dad, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Because I made you a promise the day you were born. I promised your mother I'd give you every opportunity she couldn't. I kept turning pages. Your piano lessons, your soccer league fees, your summer camps, every orthodontist appointment, every school trip, every birthday party. I saved every receipt, every canceled check, every bank statement. The documents painted a picture of sacrifice and dedication that took my breath away, even though I'd lived it. But here's what you didn't know. I pulled out a second folder, this one even thicker. While I was paying for your childhood with construction work, I was building something else. Something bigger. The first document was a business license. Wilson Development, Incorporated 2003. Year 4 of the business. I'd saved enough to buy my first rental property. A duplex on Maple Street. I fixed it up myself, nights and weekends. Next page, another property deed. By 2005, I owned 6 rental properties. The income from those properties paid for your private school. Another page. Wilson Holdings, Incorporated 2008. By the time you started high school, I owned 11 companies and 47 properties. But you still saw me leave every morning in work boots. Because you wanted me to learn values. Because I wanted you to understand that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account. It's measured by their character, their kindness, their willingness to work hard and help others. I opened a third folder. These are the charity receipts. Over $2 million donated to local causes over the last 15 years. The Children's Hospital, the Homeless Shelter, the Scholarship Fund at your university. Emma was crying now, but she kept reading. This is the record of every employee I've hired. 312 people over the years. Single mothers, ex-convicts, immigrants, college kids, people who needed a second chance. Dad, wait, there's more. I pulled out a final document. This is your college transcript. Dean's list every semester. Graduated summa cum laude. Full tuition paid by the Anonymous Scholarship Fund. I looked at my daughter, this amazing young woman I'd raised to be kind and strong and independent. Emma, I could have lived in a mansion and driven fancy cars and worn expensive suits. I could have sent you to Swiss boarding schools and given you a trust fund and made sure everyone knew how successful I was. Why didn't you? Because I watched too many rich kids grow up thinking they were better than everyone else. I watched them become entitled and cruel and shallow. I wanted you to understand that real worth comes from what you contribute, not what you own. She wiped her eyes and looked at me. But I almost married someone who was ashamed of you. You almost married someone who couldn't see past the surface. That's not your fault, sweetheart. That's his. What if I had? What if I'd actually married him? I smiled and closed the folders. Then I would have loved you anyway. And I would have hoped that someday someone would teach you the same lesson Bradley just learned. Which is, that respect isn't something you can buy, inherit, or demand. It's something you earn. One honest day at a time. 2 p.m. Oak Valley Country Club. I drove my old pickup truck into the circular driveway, past the line of luxury cars and confused guests. The valet looked at me like I'd made a wrong turn, but I handed him my keys anyway. Mr. Wilson! Thank God you're here. Patricia Wells from Enchanted Gardens was waiting by the entrance, ring in her hands. Patricia, what's the situation? Chaos. Pure chaos. The guests have been arriving since 1:30, but there are no flowers, no food, no photographer. The venue coordinator is having a breakdown. Through the main doors, I could see exactly what she meant. 200 wedding guests in their finest clothes, milling around the empty ballroom like survivors of a shipwreck. No decorations, no music, no bride. Bradley was near the altar area, still in his tuxedo, frantically talking on his phone. Even from a distance, I could see the sweat stains under his arms. Has anyone told the guests what's happening? Bradley keeps saying there's been a temporary delay. But people are starting to ask questions. I straightened my tie. Not the clip-on tie I usually wore to work sites. The Italian silk tie that came with the $5,000 suit I'd bought for occasions like this. The suit I'd never worn because there had never been an occasion important enough. Until now. Patricia, I need you to find the microphone system. What are you going to do? Something I should have done 25 years ago. I walked into the ballroom, and conversations gradually stopped. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward me, this stranger in an expensive suit who clearly didn't belong in their world. Except I did belong. I'd just been hiding it. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The room fell silent. Bradley looked up from his phone call, and his face went white when he saw me. My name is Thomas Wilson. I'm Emma's father. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. This wasn't the blue-collar construction worker they'd heard about. I know you're all confused about why there are no flowers, no food, and no photographer. I'm here to explain. Bradley was pushing through the crowd toward me, but I held up a hand. Yesterday morning, every vendor for this wedding received a call requesting cancellation of their services. That call came from me. The murmur of conversation grew louder. I canceled the flowers, the food, the photography, and the music. I personally paid $63,000 in cancellation fees to make sure this wedding would not happen. Now there was genuine shock. Someone in the back called out, "Why would you do that to your own daughter?" That's an excellent question. The answer is simple. Respect. I looked directly at Bradley. 3 days ago, at this very venue, the groom told me that only important people would be attending this celebration. He made it clear that a man who works with his hands and drives an old truck wasn't worthy of witnessing his daughter's wedding. The crowd was completely quiet now. 2 nights ago, at 2:15 a.m., he called me drunk and explained in detail why I was an embarrassment to his future wife. He said I smelled like sawdust. He said I would hold Emma back from the important life she deserved. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone. I recorded that conversation. Would you like to hear it? No! Bradley's voice cracked. Thomas, please. These people don't need to hear. Actually, I think they do. I pressed play. Bradley's slurred voice filled the ballroom through the sound system. Come on, man, be realistic. I work at Patterson and Associates. Do you know what that means? We handle clients worth hundreds of millions. The Vanderbilt account alone is worth more than you'll make in your entire lifetime. Gasps from the crowd. Several people looked at Eleanor Vanderbilt, who was sitting in the third row with her arms crossed. The recording continued. These people drive cars that cost more than your annual salary. They summer in the Hamptons. They don't want to make small talk with someone who smells like sawdust. The disgust in the room was palpable. Several guests were shaking their heads. I turned off the phone. Now, I could have simply confronted Bradley about his behavior. I could have demanded an apology, but I decided that this was a teaching moment, not just for him, but for everyone. I walked to the center of the room. You see, Bradley made several assumptions about me based on my appearance. He assumed that because I dress practically and drive a practical car, I must be poor and unimportant. I pulled out a business card and held it up. Thomas Wilson, CEO, Wilson Holdings. We own 11 construction companies across 3 states. Annual revenue, $15.8 million. The silence was deafening. I built this country club, the renovation 3 years ago? Wilson Construction. The Patterson family estate that several of you have attended parties at? Also Wilson Construction. I looked at William Patterson, Bradley's former boss, who was sitting in the second row looking mortified. Bill, would you like to tell everyone how much money Patterson and Associates has paid my companies this year? Patterson stood up reluctantly. $2.3 million. And how long has Bradley been handling the liaison work with my companies? 18 months. So, for 18 months, Bradley has been taking my money while insulting me behind my back. Is that accurate? That appears to be the case. I turned back to the crowd. I've been a member of this country club for 12 years. I serve on the hospital board with Eleanor Vanderbilt. I play golf with James Vanderbilt every Thursday. I've donated over $3 million to local charities, and I've never asked for recognition or publicity. Eleanor Vanderbilt stood up. Tom Wilson has been one of our most valued board members for years. He's also been one of our most generous donors. The Children's Cancer Wing exists because of his foundation. She turned to Bradley with cold fury. Young man, you've spent months name-dropping my family to impress people, not knowing that the man you were insulting is one of our closest friends. Bradley's face was scarlet. Several guests were pulling out their phones, no doubt checking social media, and confirming what they were hearing. So here's what happened, I continued. Bradley Morrison insulted me, recorded himself doing it, and then discovered that his career depended entirely on my goodwill. As of yesterday evening, he's no longer employed by Patterson and Associates. More gasps. The wedding was canceled because no daughter of mine will marry someone who's ashamed of where she came from. No daughter of mine will apologize for her father's honest work. A woman in the front row called out, "Where is Emma?" Emma is at home, deciding whether she wants to marry a man who judges people by their clothes or whether she deserves better. I looked around the room one final time. 25 years ago, I made a choice to live humbly while building something meaningful. I wanted my daughter to understand that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account or their zip code. It's measured by their character. I looked directly at Bradley. Today, we all learned the difference. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of conversation, the sound of 200 people realizing they'd just witnessed something extraordinary. At the door, Patricia Wells stopped me. "Tom, that was incredible." "Patricia, make sure those flowers get to the children's hospital like you planned." "Already done." I smiled and walked out to my truck. The valet handed me my keys with newfound respect. As I drove away, I could see guests streaming out of the building, most of them on their phones, all of them talking animatedly. By evening, this would be the story everyone in the city was discussing. By tomorrow, Bradley Morrison would be a cautionary tale, and Emma would understand exactly who her father really was. 6 months later, Emma knocked on my office door at Wilson Holdings, just like she had every Tuesday for the past 20 weeks. "How's the new job?" I asked as she settled into the chair across from my desk. "Good. Really good. The nonprofit sector is different from what I expected, but I love the work." After everything that happened, Emma had decided to join the Wilson Foundation as program director. She said she wanted to understand the other half of her father's life, the giving half. "Any word from Bradley?" She shook her head. "He moved to Phoenix last month. His new girlfriend posted about it on social media. Are you okay with that?" "Dad, I'm relieved. Can you imagine if I'd actually married him, spending my life apologizing for who my family is?" Through the window, I could see one of my construction crews working on a new affordable housing project. Same work I'd been doing for 25 years. Same satisfaction. "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer." "Okay. Are you angry that I hid this from you? The money, the business, all of it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I was, at first. But then I realized something. If you'd raised me knowing we were wealthy, would I have learned to work for what I wanted? Would I have treated people with respect, regardless of their job titles? Would I have chosen social work over a trust fund lifestyle? What do you think?" "I think you gave me something more valuable than money. You gave me character." I felt my throat tighten. "There's something else," she said. "I've been thinking about dating again." "Oh?" "There's this guy at the foundation. He's a social worker, makes about $30,000 a year, drives a beat-up Honda." I waited. "I really like him. He has no idea who my father is or what our family is worth. He likes me for me. And," she grinned, "I can't wait for you to meet him. Wearing your work boots. Some lessons are worth exactly $100,000. This one was priceless."